My sister-in-law with 30,000 Instagram followers tried to turn my 5-year-old's dinosaur birthday into a princess photo shoot for her business. When my daughter said no, she turned the entire family against us until I showed up to Thanksgiving with screenshots of her bribing other parents, and everyone realized she'd been using their kids as free content for years. My sister-in-law Diane runs a children's photography business called Precious Moments by Diane. She treats every family gathering like her personal photo shoot audition. Color-coordinated outfits, staged interactions, obsessive documentation for her Instagram feed. Somehow she has 30,000 followers who think she's a parenting guru. When my 5-year-old daughter Kaylee announced she wanted a dinosaur birthday party, I was thrilled. T-Rex decorations and fossil hunting games sounded perfect. Finally, something that reflected her genuine interests instead of the sanitized princess aesthetic dominating every other little girl's celebration. But then Diane volunteered to help with party planning. In Diane speak, that means completely take over and redesign according to brand requirements. Suddenly my kitchen table was covered with her mood boards featuring rose gold balloons, unicorn centerpieces, and enough tulle to outfit a ballet company. She explained with her trademark condescending smile that dinosaur themes don't photograph well. Little girls look more elegant in pastels, she insisted. She'd already ordered custom princess dresses for all the attendees because she was gifting Kaylee's party as content for her upcoming workshop on children's party photography. My husband mumbled something about Diane knowing what she's doing since this is her business. Years of being steamrolled by his sister's forceful personality had worn him down. My mother-in-law gushed about how generous Diane was being with her professional services. She completely ignored Kaylee's increasingly panicked expressions as dinosaur dreams dissolved into pink glitter and fairy wings. The other mothers in our playgroup desperately wanted professional quality photos of their own children. They eagerly agreed to Diane's vision, praising her artistic eye and sophisticated taste. Their kids stood silently beside them, probably wondering why their opinions about their friend's party mattered less than a stranger's photography portfolio. Diane scheduled a pre-party consultation where she brought ring lights and backdrop stands. Our living room transformed into a makeshift studio. She explained her shot list and directed Kaylee to practice poses that had nothing to do with dinosaurs and everything to do with maximizing engagement on social media posts. Those posts would feature Diane's watermark more prominently than the birthday girl's happiness. As the party date approached, I watched my daughter's excitement fade into resigned compliance. Her bedroom wall still displayed dinosaur posters that she now stared at longingly. They seemed like artifacts from a previous life where her preferences mattered more than photogenic content creation. The morning of the party, Diane arrived 2 hours early with professional lighting equipment and backup cameras. She carried a garment bag containing Kaylee's custom princess dress. Pink, sparkly, everything Kaylee hated. When Diane tried to slip the dress over Kaylee's head, my daughter planted her feet firmly on the ground. I want to wear my dinosaur shirt. Her voice was quiet but determined. Diane's smile faltered for just a moment before snapping back into place. She began her usual manipulation about looking pretty for pictures and making everyone happy, but Kaylee had reached her limit. She crossed her arms and shook her head. It's my birthday, and I want dinosaurs. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Diane's carefully constructed authority crumbled as other children began asking why they couldn't have dinosaur costumes too. Parents who had been nodding along suddenly looked uncertain. Within minutes, I was pulling out the dinosaur decorations I'd hidden in the garage. The princess dresses stayed in their bags. Kaylee's smile returned as she helped arrange plastic velociraptors around the cake table. Diane was standing there fuming. I thought we had won, but I was wrong, because I never took into account the possibility of Diane destroying the birthday, just to have her way. The next morning, I woke to find my phone buzzing with notifications. Diane had posted a lengthy Instagram story about when family doesn't appreciate your expertise. The post featured carefully curated photos from previous parties she'd photographed, each one a testament to her aesthetic vision. Pink, pastel, perfect. She never mentioned Kaylee's party directly, but her followers understood the subtext. Comments poured in about ungrateful relatives and how some people just don't understand art. I scrolled through the responses while making breakfast. Professional photographers sympathized with her struggle. Parents praised her dedication to quality. Nobody asked about the birthday girl's preferences. Kaylee sat at the kitchen table, happily munching cereal and chattering about how the dinosaur hunt had been her favorite part. She didn't know her aunt was already rewriting history online. My husband emerged from the bedroom, phone in hand. His face showed that familiar expression of exhausted resignation. He'd seen Diane's posts too. When I started to speak, he held up his hand and shuffled toward the coffee maker. The conversation we needed to have would wait until caffeine made it possible. By noon, my mother-in-law had called 3 times. I let them go to voicemail. Her messages progressed from concerned to disappointed to outright accusatory. How could I humiliate Diane like that? Didn't I realize how much time and money she'd invested? The family group chat exploded with relatives I hadn't heard from in months, suddenly weighing in on proper party etiquette. Diane's influence extended beyond social media. She'd spent years cultivating her image as the family's creative genius, the one who elevated every gathering from mundane to magical. Relatives who'd never attended one of Kaylee's parties felt qualified to judge my parenting based on Diane's carefully crafted narrative. They shared her posts, adding their own commentary about respecting expertise and teaching children gratitude. The weekend passed in a blur of damage control. I fielded calls from other parents in our playgroup, each one probing for details about what really happened. Some genuinely sympathized, understanding the challenge of balancing children's wishes with family expectations. Others clearly sided with Diane, their voices dripping with judgment as they asked how I could waste such an opportunity for professional photos. Monday brought new complications. Diane had scheduled an emergency family dinner at my mother-in-law's house. The text came through the family group chat, making attendance feel mandatory. My husband read it over my shoulder, his jaw tightening. We both knew this wasn't about sharing a meal. We arrived to find Diane already holding court in the living room. She'd brought a tablet loaded with her photography portfolio, showing anyone who'd listen what Kaylee's party could have been. My mother-in-law nodded along, occasionally shooting disapproving glances my way. Other relatives filtered in, choosing seats that clearly indicated their allegiances. Kaylee ran off to play with her cousins, blissfully unaware of the adult tension. I envied her ability to compartmentalize, to separate family drama from family love. Diane waited until the children were out of earshot before launching into her presentation about the importance of visual documentation in preserving family memories. She'd prepared a slideshow comparing professional party photos with amateur snapshots. The message was clear. Without her expertise, Kaylee's childhood would be remembered through blurry, poorly composed images that failed to capture the magic of growing up. She spoke about legacy and memory making as if she held the exclusive keys to both. My husband shifted uncomfortably beside me. I could feel his internal struggle, the lifelong pattern of avoiding conflict with his sister warring against his need to support his wife and daughter. His mother kept shooting him meaningful looks, the kind that had probably worked when he was 12 and needed her approval. The dinner itself was torture. Diane had positioned herself directly across from me, ensuring every bite I took happened under her watchful gaze. She steered every conversation back to her business, her expertise, her generous nature that some people failed to appreciate. My mother-in-law eagerly supported each point, building a case for why I should apologize. eyes. Other relatives chimed in with their own stories of Diane's photographic genius. The time she'd saved cousin Emma's wedding with her backup camera. The way she'd transformed Uncle Pete's retirement party into a magazine-worthy event. Each anecdote reinforced the narrative that I'd foolishly rejected a gift most people would treasure. Kaylee bounced into the dining room halfway through dessert, her face flushed from playing. She climbed into my lap and whispered about the fort she'd built with her cousins. Diane watched us with calculating eyes, and I knew she was already planning her next move. The birthday party might be over, but the battle for control had just begun. The drive home was silent. My husband gripped the steering wheel while I stared out the window, both of us processing the evening's emotional ambush. Kaylee dozed in her car seat, clutching the stuffed T-Rex she'd won during her party's dinosaur hunt. At least she'd had one perfect day before the family politics invaded. That night, I lay awake scrolling through Diane's social media empire. 30,000 followers watching her curate perfect childhood moments, each post meticulously crafted to reinforce her brand. Happy children in coordinated outfits, grateful parents praising her vision, not a single dinosaur or superhero or anything that might clash with her aesthetic. I found myself studying the comments more closely. Between the effusive praise, subtle patterns emerged. Parents mentioning how their children had come around to Diane's vision. Well, Diane sure knows how to turn a dinosaur party into a princess disaster faster than you can say T-Rex in a tutu. The poor kid just wanted some plastic velociraptors and ended up in the middle of Instagram's most passive-aggressive photo war. How kids who initially resisted had learned to appreciate the beautiful photos later. The word compromise appeared frequently, always in the context of children adapting to adult preferences. My husband pretended to sleep beside me, but his breathing was too controlled. We'd need to talk eventually about his family, his sister, his inability to stand up to either, but not tonight. Tonight, I just needed to process how quickly Diane had mobilized the family against me, how efficiently she'd reframed my support of Kaylee's choices as an attack on her professional reputation. The next morning brought more social media fallout. Diane had posted a new series titled When Vision Meets Resistance. Artistic black and white photos of disappointed children at parties, their sadness carefully staged to suggest they'd been denied something beautiful. The captions philosophized about parents who prioritized temporary whims over lasting memories. I recognized some of the children from previous family events. Kids who'd wanted superhero parties but got garden themes instead. Children who'd asked for pizza but were served aesthetic charcuterie boards. Each image told Diane's version of the story, where she was always the hero saving children from their own poor taste. My phone rang while I was making Kaylee's lunch. A number I didn't recognize, but the voice was familiar. Another mom from our playgroup, one who'd seemed supportive at the party. She hemmed and hawed before getting to the point. Diane had offered her a discount on party photography if she'd write a testimonial about how much better professional documentation was than amateur snapshots. The conversation revealed Diane's expanding campaign. She'd reached out to multiple parents, offering deals and incentives to publicly support her vision. Some had already agreed, swayed by the promise of beautiful photos at reduced prices. Others felt uncomfortable but didn't want to get involved in family drama. The playground politics were shifting in real time. After school, Kaylee asked if Aunt Diane was mad at her. The question hit like a punch to the gut. I knelt down to her level, searching for words that wouldn't poison her against family, but wouldn't gaslight her either. Her little face scrunched with worry as she explained that Grandma had seemed sad at dinner, and everyone kept whispering when they thought kids weren't listening. I hugged her tight and assured her that adult feelings were adult problems. Her birthday had been perfect exactly the way she wanted it, but I could see the doubt creeping in, the way children internalize family tension even when they can't understand it. Diane's campaign wasn't just about vindicating her professional reputation anymore. It was affecting my daughter. That evening, my husband finally broke his silence. He sat at the kitchen table, shoulders slumped, and admitted he'd been getting texts from relatives all day. His mother had called his office twice. His cousins were choosing sides. The family WhatsApp group had devolved into passive-aggressive memes about gratitude and respect. He showed me some of the messages. Diane had been busy, reaching out individually to family members with her version of events. She'd painted herself as the devoted aunt who'd spent thousands of dollars trying to give her niece a magical birthday, only to be humiliated and rejected. The narrative was compelling, especially to relatives who'd always seen her as the family's creative star. We talked about boundaries and support, about the patterns we'd ignored for too long. He admitted that standing up to Diane felt impossible after decades of family conditioning. Every time he'd tried as a child, their mother had made him apologize for hurting his sister's feelings. The dynamic was so entrenched that resistance felt like betrayal. The week progressed with escalating tensions. Diane scheduled a Facebook Live session about navigating client resistance with grace. She never mentioned our family specifically, but anyone following the situation understood the subtext. Her followers eagerly shared their own stories of difficult clients who didn't appreciate their artistic vision. I started documenting everything. Screenshots of posts, saved voicemails, notes from conversations. Not because I planned some dramatic confrontation, but because I needed to maintain my grip on reality. Diane's ability to reshape narratives was so powerful that even I sometimes wondered if I'd overreacted. The documentation helped me remember what actually happened. Friday afternoon, another family dinner invitation arrived, this time for Sunday lunch at Diane's house. The message emphasized that this was about healing and moving forward as a family. My husband's face went pale as he read it. We both knew declining would escalate things further, but attending felt like walking into an ambush. I spent Saturday researching manipulation tactics and family dynamics. The patterns were textbook. Diane's behavior aligned perfectly with narcissistic control strategies. The social media campaigns, the flying monkeys in the form of relatives, the rewriting of history to cast herself as victim. Understanding the playbook helped, even if it didn't provide easy solutions. Kaylee spent the day playing with her dinosaur toys, occasionally asking if we were going to Aunt Diane's house tomorrow. Her innocent questions revealed how much she'd absorbed despite our efforts to shield her. She wondered if she should wear something pretty so Aunt Diane wouldn't be sad. The comment broke my heart. That night, I made a decision. We would attend the lunch, but on our terms. I dressed Kaylee in her favorite dinosaur shirt, the one she'd worn to her party. If Diane wanted to have this conversation, she could look at the symbol of her nephew's actual preferences while doing it. My husband agreed, though his hands shook as we prepared to leave. The drive to Diane's house felt like approaching a battlefield. Her home reflected her aesthetic perfectly. Everything curated, coordinated, camera ready. Even the doormat matched the color scheme. We rang the doorbell, Kaylee between us, and waited for whatever came next. Diane opened the door wearing a flowing white dress that made her look like she'd stepped out of a lifestyle magazine. She greeted us with air kisses and ushered us inside, her eyes lingering disapprovingly on Kaylee's dinosaur shirt. The house smelled of expensive candles and fresh flowers, every surface arranged for maximum visual impact. The living room was already full of relatives. My mother-in-law sat in the place of honor, flanked by Diane's most loyal supporters. Cousins I barely recognized had driven in from neighboring towns. Everyone turned to watch us enter, their expressions ranging from sympathetic to openly hostile. Kaylee pressed closer to my leg, sensing the charged atmosphere. Diane had transformed her dining room into a presentation space. A projector screen dominated one wall, and Professional lighting equipment lined the corners. She'd arranged chairs theater style, leaving 3 seats in the front row with our names on elegant place cards. The setup screamed ambush, but we took our assigned seats anyway. My husband's Aunt Victoria arrived late, creating a brief distraction. She'd always been the family's voice of reason, but even she looked uncomfortable as Diane launched into her prepared presentation. The first slide showed statistics about childhood memory formation and the importance of professional documentation. Diane clicked through graphs and testimonials with practiced ease. The presentation shifted to case studies of families who'd initially resisted her vision, but later thanked her for preserving their children's milestones properly. She showed before and after photos, emphasizing how amateur snapshots failed to capture true emotion. Each example reinforced her narrative that parents who rejected professional photography were failing their children. Kaylee fidgeted in her seat, clearly bored by the adult drama. She tugged at my sleeve, asking permission to play in the backyard. Diane paused mid-sentence, her smile tightening as she suggested Kaylee might benefit from seeing how beautiful other children looked in her photos. My daughter shrank back, and I pulled her closer. The presentation continued for another 20 minutes. Diane showed photos from every family event she'd documented over the years, highlighting moments where her intervention had elevated ordinary gatherings into artistic triumphs. She lingered on images of compliant children in coordinated outfits, their poses perfect, their smiles camera-ready. When she finally finished, the room erupted in supportive murmurs. Relatives praised her dedication and professionalism. My mother-in-law dabbed at her eyes, moved by the beauty of captured memories. Only Victoria remained silent, her expression thoughtful as she watched the family dynamics play out. Diane announced lunch was ready, directing everyone to the dining room where she'd prepared an Instagram-worthy spread. The food was arranged more for photography than eating, each dish color-coordinated and garnished to perfection. She made everyone wait while she captured the table from multiple angles, adjusting place settings for optimal composition. During the meal, relatives took turns sharing stories about Diane's positive impact on their lives. Cousin Daniel talked about his daughter's quinceañera photos. Another relative gushed about a newborn session. Each testimonial felt rehearsed, building the case that I'd committed an unforgivable sin by rejecting such generosity. Kaylee picked at her food, overwhelmed by the adult tension. When she accidentally knocked over her water glass, Diane's mask slipped for just a moment. The flash of irritation was quickly replaced by concerned aunt mode, but I'd seen the truth underneath. She cleaned up the spill while making subtle comments about children needing structure and guidance. Diane's turning her house into a TED Talk venue complete with PowerPoint slides about proper childhood documentation. Nothing says I'm totally fine, like making your family sit through a business presentation about why they're bad parents. After lunch, Diane suggested the children play in her converted playroom while adults continued their discussion. The room was another showcase of her aesthetic, with color-coordinated toys and a designated photo corner complete with props. Kaylee reluctantly joined her cousins, shooting worried glances back at me. With the children gone, Diane's approach shifted. She pulled out contracts and price lists, explaining how much her services typically cost. The numbers were staggering, designed to make me feel guilty about the financial gift I'd rejected. She detailed the hours spent planning, the money invested in custom dresses, the opportunities lost by dedicating time to Kaylee's party. My mother-in-law jumped in, emphasizing how Diane had turned down paying clients to help family. The guilt trip was expertly orchestrated, each relative adding their own layer of pressure. They painted me as selfish, ungrateful, and worst of all, a bad mother who denied her daughter beautiful memories. Victoria finally spoke up, asking why Kaylee's preferences hadn't been considered. The room fell silent. Diane's smile became brittle as she explained that children don't always know what's best for them. Parents must guide them toward good choices, she insisted, and sometimes that means overriding temporary wants for lasting benefits. The conversation spiraled into a debate about parenting philosophy. Diane's supporters argued for adult wisdom prevailing over childish whims. They shared examples of times they'd made unpopular decisions that their children later appreciated. The consensus was clear. I'd failed as a parent by indulging Kaylee's dinosaur obsession. My husband finally found his voice, quietly mentioning that Kaylee had loved her party. The room turned on him immediately. His mother expressed disappointment in his lack of family loyalty. Cousins questioned whether he understood the value of Diane's gift. The pile-on was swift and merciless, designed to bring him back in line. Diane seized the moment to show more photos, this time focusing on children who'd initially resisted her vision. She had testimonials from older kids thanking her for the beautiful images they now treasured. The message was clear. Kaylee would eventually regret the dinosaur party, and it would be my fault for enabling her poor choice. The afternoon dragged on with more emotional manipulation. Diane had prepared a video montage of family events she'd photographed, set to emotional music. Relatives wiped away tears as they watched their children grow up through her lens. The production was masterful, designed to make me look like a monster for denying Kaylee such documentation. When we finally escaped, Kaylee was subdued. She'd overheard enough to understand that Aunt Diane was upset about her party. On the drive home, she asked if she'd been bad for wanting dinosaurs. My heart broke as I reassured her, but the damage was already being done to her sense of self. That evening, the family group chat exploded again. Photos from the lunch appeared immediately, all showcasing Diane's hospitality and the family unity I'd disrupted. Relatives who'd attended added supportive comments, reinforcing the narrative that I needed to apologize and accept Diane's expertise going forward. My husband retreated to his office, overwhelmed by the family pressure. I could hear him on the phone with his mother, her voice carrying through the door. She was laying on the guilt thick, reminding him of all the times Diane had helped the family. His responses grew shorter and more defeated with each passing minute. Over the following days, Diane's campaign intensified. She posted a series on Instagram about difficult clients who didn't appreciate artistry. Though she never named names, the timing made her target obvious. Her followers rallied around her, sharing their own stories of unappreciated expertise and offering sympathy for her struggle. The playgroup dynamics shifted noticeably. Some mothers who'd previously been friendly now kept their distance. Others pumped me for information, clearly reporting back to Diane. The few who remained genuinely supportive warned me that Diane was offering free mini sessions to anyone who'd provide testimonials about the importance of professional photography. Kaylee noticed the change at playgroup too. Children who'd enjoyed her dinosaur party now made comments about how their parties would have prettier pictures. One little girl announced that her mom said dinosaur parties were for boys. Kaylee came home confused and hurt, wondering if she'd made a mistake choosing dinosaurs. My husband's resolve crumbled further under the sustained family pressure. His work suffered as relatives called throughout the day. His mother showed up at his office with lunch and a lecture about family loyalty. By the end of the week, he was suggesting that maybe we should apologize to keep the peace. I started researching narcissistic family systems, finding disturbing parallels to our situation. The golden child dynamic, the flying monkeys, the scapegoating of anyone who challenged the established order. Understanding the patterns helped me recognize the manipulation, but it didn't make it easier to combat. Diane announced a family portrait session for the following month, generously offering to include us despite recent tensions. The group chat filled with excited responses as relatives coordinated outfits outfits and schedules. The pressure for us to participate was immense, framed as an opportunity for reconciliation. When I declined politely, citing scheduling conflicts, the backlash was swift. My mother-in-law called my husband in tears, devastated that we'd missed this chance to document the family together. Other relatives expressed disappointment in our priorities. Diane played the wounded professional, hurt but understanding of our choice. The portrait session became a loyalty test. Relatives who participated were insiders. Those who didn't were clearly taking sides against Diane. She leveraged the event masterfully, creating a visual representation of the family unity we were destroying with our stubbornness. Halloween approached with new complications. Diane announced she'd be doing a styled trick-or-treat photo shoot for the family kids. She'd sourced coordinating costumes that would photograph beautifully, all in a vintage storybook theme. The costumes were expensive and elaborate, her gift to the family. Kaylee had already chosen her costume, the T-Rex, naturally. She'd been practicing her roar and planning her trick-or-treat route for weeks. When she heard about Aunt Diane's costume plan at Sunday dinner, her face fell. Other cousins excitedly discussed their matching outfits while Kaylee sat silent. That night, she asked if she had to wear Aunt Diane's costume. The resignation in her voice was heartbreaking. At 5 years old, she was already learning that her preferences came second to family harmony. I promised her she could wear her dinosaur costume, but I could see she didn't fully believe me. Diane escalated by creating a private Facebook group for family photo planning. She added everyone except us, though we heard about it immediately from relatives who thought we should know. The exclusion was deliberate, designed to isolate us while maintaining plausible deniability. The group became a hub for coordinating against us. Screenshots trickled in from sympathetic relatives showing discussions about our difficult behavior. Diane positioned herself as the victim trying to maintain family traditions despite our resistance. The narrative was taking hold, reshaping reality in real time. My husband reached his breaking point when his boss mentioned the family drama. Apparently, his mother had run into the boss's wife at the grocery store and overshared about our situation. The professional embarrassment combined with relentless family pressure finally broke through his defenses. That evening, he suggested we compromise. Maybe Kaylee could wear Diane's costume for photos and her dinosaur for actual trick-or-treating. When I pointed out that this was exactly the kind of split that would confuse our daughter, he exploded. The stress of being caught between his family and his wife finally boiled over. Our argument was the worst we'd ever had. He accused me of being stubborn and unwilling to compromise. I shot back that he was enabling his sister's manipulation. We both said things we couldn't take back, while Kaylee huddled in her room, probably hearing every word. The next morning brought an ominous development. Diane posted about offering special holiday mini-sessions for families who understood the importance of preserving memories. The subtext was clear. Those who appreciated her work would get priority booking. Those who didn't would miss out on holiday card photos. Several playgroup mothers immediately booked sessions, gushing about their excitement in the comments. They tagged me, asking if we'd be participating this year. The public pressure was mounting, forcing me to either capitulate or publicly reject Diane's services again. I discovered Diane had been visiting Kaylee's preschool during pickup time. She wasn't collecting Kaylee, just happening to be there when parents arrived. She'd chat with other mothers, camera in hand, occasionally snapping candids of the children playing. The message was clear. She was documenting childhood moments, with or without my permission. When I confronted her about the preschool visits, she played innocent. She was just supporting her niece, she claimed. If she happened to network with other parents while there, that was simply community building. Her smile never wavered as she gaslit me into questioning my own perceptions. The preschool staff mentioned that Kaylee had been withdrawn lately. She'd stopped talking about dinosaurs and seemed hesitant during creative play. When they asked if everything was okay at home, I realized how deeply the family conflict was affecting her. The preschool visits feel like crossing a pretty big line here. Why does Diane need to show up at pickup time with her camera when she's not even collecting Kaylee? That seems like way more than just supporting family. The bright, confident child was dimming under the pressure. Halloween arrived with predictable drama. Diane organized a pre-trick-or-treat photo shoot at her house for family members wearing her coordinated costumes. The Facebook group buzzed with excitement as relatives shared their preparation. We weren't invited, but the exclusion was felt by everyone. I kept my promise to Kaylee, zipping her into the T-Rex costume she'd chosen. Her smile returned as she practiced her roar in the mirror. For a moment, she was just a happy 5-year-old excited about candy and adventure. Then my phone buzzed with photos from Diane's shoot, and reality intruded again. The photos were stunning, I had to admit. Cousins posed in vintage-inspired costumes against Diane's carefully crafted backdrop. The images looked like something from a high-end magazine. Comments poured in about how beautiful the children looked, how lucky they were to have Diane preserving these moments. As we walked through the neighborhood, we encountered other families from the photo shoot. They were still in their coordinated costumes, now slightly wrinkled from wear. The children looked less enthusiastic than in Diane's photos, but their parents insisted on more pictures, trying to recreate the magic. Kaylee noticed her cousin's matching costumes and asked why she wasn't included. I explained that she'd chosen her own costume, which was special and unique. She nodded, but I could see the hurt. At 5, she was already learning about exclusion and the price of individuality. The next day, Diane's Halloween photos dominated social media. She'd created an entire narrative around the shoot, talking about the importance of coordinated family memories. The post went viral in local parenting groups, with mothers asking how to book similar sessions. Her business was thriving on our family drama. My husband spent the weekend in his office, allegedly working but really avoiding the situation. His mother had left several tearful voicemails about the Halloween photos we'd missed. The guilt was eating at him, and I could see him weakening with each passing day. Thanksgiving planning started immediately after Halloween. Diane announced she'd be documenting the entire day for a gratitude project, featuring family traditions. She'd already planned coordinating outfits, table settings, and staged moments that would showcase the perfect family gathering. The group chat filled with relatives claiming their roles in Diane's production. Who would carve the turkey for the camera? Which children would help with pie preparation? Every moment was choreographed for maximum visual impact. The actual meal seemed secondary to its documentation. I tried suggesting we host our own quiet Thanksgiving, just the 3 of us. My husband looked tempted for a moment before his phone rang. His mother's timing was impeccable, as always. By the end of the call, he was convinced that missing family Thanksgiving would be unforgivable. Diane sent a group message about outfit coordination for Thanksgiving. She'd selected a palette of warm neutrals that would photograph beautifully. Links to approved clothing options were included, along with tips for avoiding patterns that might clash with her table settings. The level of control was breathtaking. When I didn't respond to the outfit coordination message, Diane texted privately. She expressed concern about Kaylee feeling left out if she wasn't dressed appropriately for photos. The manipulation was masterful, using my daughter's feelings as leverage for compliance. She even offered to purchase Kaylee's outfit as an early Christmas gift. I discovered Diane had been telling relatives that I was jealous of her success. According to her narrative, my rejection of her services stemmed from envy over her thriving business and social media following. She painted herself as the successful sister-in-law dealing with family resentment, a story that resonated with her followers. The truth was more complex. I wasn't jealous of Diane's success. I was protective of my daughter's autonomy. But that nuance was lost in Diane's black and white narrative, where she was always the hero and anyone who challenged her was the villain. The story was taking on a life of its own. My research into family dynamics led me to online support groups for people dealing with narcissistic relatives. The stories were eerily familiar. The gradual erosion of boundaries, the flying monkeys enforcing compliance, the rewriting of history to suit the narcissist's narrative. I wasn't alone, but that didn't make it easier. One afternoon, I ran into Victoria at the grocery store. She pulled me aside, expressing concern about the family situation. She'd been watching Diane's behavior for years, she admitted, but speaking up seemed impossible when everyone else enabled it. She warned me that Diane was planning something big for Thanksgiving. Victoria revealed that Diane had been documenting our family drama for a potential book about dealing with difficult clients. She'd been taking notes, saving screenshots, and crafting a narrative where she was the misunderstood artist dealing with unreasonable relatives. Our pain was becoming her content. The betrayal stung more than I expected. It was one thing to manipulate family dynamics. It was another to monetize our conflict. I wondered how many of our interactions had been staged for future content. How many emotional moments had Diane manufactured for her professional narrative? That evening, I found Kaylee arranging her dinosaur toys in order of size. She explained she was organizing them for a photo, making them look pretty like Aunt Diane's pictures. My heart sank as I realized she was internalizing the message that everything needed to be camera ready. The natural joy of play was being replaced by performance. My husband and I had another difficult conversation about boundaries and family loyalty. He understood my concerns intellectually, but struggled to overcome decades of conditioning. His mother had called again, crying about the family falling apart. The emotional manipulation was wearing him down, and I could see him cracking. As Thanksgiving approached, the pressure intensified. Relatives reached out individually, trying to broker peace. Each conversation followed the same pattern: acknowledgement of Diane's intensity, followed by pleas for compromise. The subtext was always clear: submit to keep the peace. I started documenting everything more systematically: screenshots of posts, recordings of voicemails, notes from every interaction. If Diane was building a case for her book, I needed my own evidence. The folder grew daily, a depressing chronicle of family dysfunction. 3 days before Thanksgiving, Diane made her big move. She announced a family healing circle to be held before the holiday meal. She'd hired a professional mediator, she claimed, to help us work through our differences. The group chat exploded with praise for her initiative and pressure for us to participate. The mediator turned out to be a photographer friend of Diane's who specialized in family portraits. The conflict of interest was obvious to everyone except those who didn't want to see it. The healing circle was another performance, designed to force public capitulation or paint us as unreasonable. My husband wavered, tempted by the promise of resolution. He was exhausted from the constant conflict and desperate for peace. I watched him struggle, torn between supporting his wife and appeasing his family. The stress was affecting his health, his work, and our marriage. The night before Thanksgiving, I made a decision. I pulled out my documentation folder and showed my husband everything I'd collected: the patterns of manipulation, the escalating control, the monetization of our conflict. For the first time, he saw the full picture laid out systematically. His expression shifted from skepticism to recognition to anger as he processed the evidence. The scales fell from his eyes as he recognized the toxic patterns he'd been enabling. It was painful watching him realize how his family had manipulated him, but it was necessary for any real change. We talked until dawn, planning our response to Diane's escalating campaign. For the first time in months, we were truly united. Whatever happened at Thanksgiving, we would face it together. Kaylee deserved parents who prioritized her well-being over family approval. Thanksgiving morning arrived with a sense of foreboding. Diane had texted reminders about outfit coordination and arrival times for the healing circle. The performance was about to begin, but for the first time, we were ready to write our own script. As we dressed Kaylee in the dinosaur sweater she'd chosen herself, I felt a shift in the family dynamic. The battle wasn't over, but something had fundamentally changed. My husband stood beside me, finally seeing his sister's behavior clearly. We drove to his mother's house not as victims of manipulation, but as parents determined to protect our daughter. The real confrontation was about to begin. We pulled into my mother-in-law's driveway 20 minutes late for the healing circle. Diane's car occupied the prime spot naturally. Through the window, I could see relatives arranged in a semicircle waiting. My husband squeezed my hand before we got out. Kaylee clutched her stuffed dinosaur, the one she'd insisted on bringing for courage. The moment we entered, Diane's photographer friend stood up with a practiced smile. She introduced herself as a family dynamic specialist, though her camera bag sat conspicuously by her chair. Diane had positioned herself at the center, wearing an outfit that screamed professional victim, soft, vulnerable colors designed to emphasize her wounded status. We took the only empty seats, directly across from Diane. The setup felt like a tribunal. My mother-in-law watched us with barely concealed disappointment. Diane's photographer friend moonlighting as a family therapist is like hiring a birthday clown to do your taxes. Technically, they showed up, but nobody's fooled by the costume change here. Other relatives shifted uncomfortably, clearly expecting us to apologize and end this whole mess. The photographer mediator launched into a speech about family bonds and the importance of compromise. Diane went first, of course. She detailed her generous efforts to give Kaylee a beautiful party, her voice breaking at strategic moments. She pulled out receipts, showing the money spent on dresses and decorations. Each item represented her love for her niece, she claimed. The performance was flawless, hitting every emotional note. When my turn came, I simply pulled out my phone. The documentation folder was extensive. Screenshots of Diane's posts mocking our choices, messages from other parents about her bribery attempts, photos of Kaylee's genuine joy at her dinosaur party versus her forced smiles at Diane's events. The evidence spoke louder than any speech could. The room's energy shifted as relatives saw the receipts. Diane's careful narrative began cracking. She tried redirecting, talking about artistic vision and professional standards. But Victoria interrupted, sharing her own observations about Diane's pattern of controlling family events. The floodgates opened. Cousin Daniel's wife admitted their daughter had cried for hours after her quinceañera, wanting the party she'd planned, not Diane's vision. Another relative revealed Diane had threatened to withhold family photos unless they posted glowing reviews of her business. Story after story emerged of manipulation disguised as generosity. Diane's mask slipped completely. She accused everyone of ganging up on her, of not understanding her artistic process. When that didn't work, she pivoted to tears, sobbing about how she'd only wanted to help. The photographer mediator looked increasingly uncomfortable as her friend's true nature revealed itself. My mother-in-law sat frozen, processing the disconnect between the daughter she thought she knew and the reality before her. When she finally spoke, her voice was small. She asked Diane directly about the book, about monetizing family drama. Diane's stuttering response confirmed what Victoria had discovered. The healing circle devolved into chaos. Relatives who'd supported Diane Diane began questioning other interactions. Had their children's birthday parties been authentic or just content creation? Were family gatherings about connection or photography portfolios? The foundation of Diane's influence crumbled as people recognized the patterns. Diane tried one last manipulation, suggesting we were ruining Thanksgiving for the children. But Kaylee, who'd been silent throughout, stood up. She walked over to her grandmother and showed her the dinosaur she'd brought. She explained it was her favorite because she'd won it at her birthday party, the one where she got to be herself. The simple honesty of a 5-year-old cut through the adult drama. My mother-in-law pulled Kaylee into a hug, finally seeing what mattered. She looked at Diane with dawning horror, understanding how her granddaughter's happiness had been sacrificed for Instagram content. Diane grabbed her things and stormed out, the photographer mediator trailing behind. The remaining family sat in stunned silence. Then slowly, conversations began. Real conversations about boundaries and children's autonomy, about the difference between capturing memories and manufacturing them. We moved to the dining room for Thanksgiving dinner. Without Diane orchestrating, the meal felt different, relaxed, genuine. People wore what they wanted, sat where they felt comfortable. Children played between courses without being corralled for photos. Food was eaten, not just arranged for optimal angles. My husband found his voice throughout the meal, sharing his own experiences of growing up under Diane's control. Other relatives nodded, recognizing similar patterns in their own interactions. The conversation wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Years of enabling behavior didn't disappear instantly, but awareness was the first step. After dinner, Kaylee played with her cousins freely. No one directed their games or posed them for pictures. Parents took casual snapshots on their phones, capturing real moments instead of staged ones. The children's laughter sounded different without the pressure to perform. Victoria pulled me aside during dessert. She'd been collecting her own evidence, she revealed. Other families in town had similar stories about Diane's business practices. Parents who'd paid thousands for photo sessions only to have their children's genuine emotions dismissed as unphotogenic. The network of affected families was larger than we'd known. The group chat that night was radically different. Instead of Diane's curated photos, relatives shared candid moments from dinner. Kids with mashed potatoes on their faces, adults laughing mid-conversation. Imperfect, authentic, real. The aesthetic was gone, but the connection remained. Over the following days, the family dynamics shifted significantly. My mother-in-law called to apologize, admitting she'd been blinded by Diane's success. She'd confused professional achievement with personal virtue. The conversation was painful but healing. She wanted to know Kaylee better, without the filter of Diane's lens. Other relatives reached out with their own apologies and stories. The cousin whose wedding Diane had saved admitted the photographer had actually created drama to position herself as the hero. The uncle whose retirement party became magazine-worthy revealed he'd wanted a simple backyard barbecue. Pattern after pattern emerged. At the playground, the change was immediate. Parents who'd been distant suddenly opened up about their own experiences with Diane. Several admitted they'd felt pressured to book sessions they couldn't afford. Others shared how their children had developed anxiety about photos after Diane's critical sessions. One mother showed me messages where Diane had suggested her daughter needed to lose weight to photograph better. Another revealed Diane had tried to exclude a child with visible disabilities from a group shot. The stories painted a picture of someone who valued aesthetic perfection over children's well-being. My husband's transformation was remarkable. Free from family pressure, he became the partner I'd needed all along. He started therapy to address his enabling patterns. He set boundaries with his mother about discussing Diane. Most importantly, he prioritized Kaylee's happiness over family harmony. Kaylee blossomed without the constant performance pressure. Her creativity exploded in new directions. She combined her dinosaurs with princesses, creating elaborate stories that no aesthetic-obsessed adult would have imagined. Her preschool teachers commented on her increased confidence and participation. The ripple effects continued. Parents who'd booked holiday sessions with Diane began canceling. Word spread through the community about prioritizing children's joy over perfect photos. Other photographers in town reported increased business as families sought authentic documentation over staged perfection. Diane tried damage control on social media. She posted about difficult seasons and rising above negativity, but her engagement plummeted. Followers noticed the sudden absence of family photos. Comments questioned why her relatives no longer appeared in her content. The carefully built empire showed cracks. Some relatives still struggled with the change. Habits built over years didn't disappear overnight. There were awkward moments at family gatherings when someone would automatically pose for a photo that wasn't coming. Children would ask if they were dressed appropriately before remembering those rules no longer applied. My documentation folder served an unexpected purpose. Other families dealing with similar situations reached out for advice. We formed an informal support network, sharing strategies for maintaining boundaries with image-obsessed relatives. The group grew as more people recognized these patterns in their own families. Christmas approached with new traditions. My mother-in-law suggested a casual gathering at her house, explicitly stating comfortable clothes were encouraged. The family gift exchange focused on experiences rather than photogenic items. Children's wish lists were honored, even if dinosaurs and superheroes didn't match any color scheme. Diane made one last attempt at reconciliation through a carefully worded email about moving forward as a family, but the apology was conditional, focused on others understanding her perspective rather than acknowledging harm. The family's response was unified. Boundaries remained firm. The extended family learned to celebrate without performance. Birthday parties reflected children's actual interests. Holiday gatherings prioritized connection over content. Photos became spontaneous captures of joy rather than orchestrated productions. The aesthetic was messier, but the emotions were genuine. Victoria became an unexpected ally, using her observations to help other relatives understand the manipulation they'd experienced. She organized casual family gatherings that explicitly banned professional photography. These events rebuilt connections that had been strained by years of performance pressure. Local parenting groups evolved too. Discussions shifted from achieving Pinterest-perfect parties to honoring children's preferences. Parents shared resources for child-led celebration planning. The community that had once enabled Diane's control became a support system for authentic parenting. My husband's relationship with his mother deepened once Diane's influence waned. They had honest conversations about family patterns and generational trauma. His mother admitted she'd lived vicariously through Diane's success, not recognizing the cost. Their healing journey was slow but genuine. The transformation wasn't instant or complete. There were setbacks and difficult conversations. Some relatives maintained relationships with Diane, creating awkward dynamics at larger gatherings. But the core family unit grew stronger through establishing and maintaining boundaries. Diane's business evolved too, though not by choice. Without family photos padding her portfolio and providing testimonials, she had to rely on actual client satisfaction. Reviews became more mixed as parents felt free to share honest experiences. The carefully curated image cracked under authentic scrutiny. By spring, Kaylee had regained her full confidence. She planned her 6th birthday party with enthusiasm, mixing pirates and unicorns in ways that would have horrified Diane. The celebration was chaotic, imperfect, and absolutely perfect for Kaylee. Photos captured genuine smiles and messy faces. The family healing continued gradually. Trust rebuilt slowly through consistent action. interactions. Relatives learned to celebrate each other's choices rather than enforcing conformity. Children's voices gained importance in family decisions. The aesthetic-obsessed culture was replaced by authentic connection. My marriage emerged stronger from the trial. We'd learned to stand together against manipulation, to prioritize our daughter's well-being over family approval. The skills we developed would serve us through future challenges. Our united front became the foundation for healthier family dynamics. Looking forward, the changes felt sustainable, not because everything was perfect, but because we'd learned to recognize and resist manipulation. We'd built support systems and established boundaries. Most importantly, we'd taught Kaylee that her voice mattered, that her preferences were valid, that she deserved to be herself. The documentation folder remained, a reminder of how quickly situations could escalate without vigilance. But it also showed our growth, our ability to stand up to manipulation, to protect what mattered. The evidence of our journey from enablement to empowerment. Family gatherings now centered on actual connection. Conversations went deeper without the constant photo interruptions. Children played freely without performance anxiety. Adults relaxed without outfit coordination stress. The messy, authentic reality was infinitely more valuable than any curated fantasy. Diane became a cautionary tale in our community about prioritizing image over substance. Her influence waned as people recognized the patterns. Other families found courage to establish their own boundaries with controlling relatives. The ripple effects of our stand continued spreading. In the end, it wasn't about destroying Diane's business or punishing her. It was about protecting children's autonomy and authentic family connection. The natural consequences of her behavior accomplished what confrontation couldn't. Reality reasserted itself once the enabling stopped. Our story resonated because it was recognizable. Every family has someone who prioritizes appearance over authenticity. The details might differ, but the dynamics remain constant. Our journey showed that change was possible, that boundaries could be established, that children's voices could be honored. The greatest victory was Kaylee's maintained sense of self. She'd weathered adult drama without internalizing the message that her preferences didn't matter. She still loved dinosaurs, still mixed interests in creative ways, still trusted her own judgment. That preservation of authentic childhood was worth every difficult conversation. Family relationships had fundamentally shifted. The hierarchy that placed Diane's vision above children's happiness had crumbled. In its place grew mutual respect and genuine connection. Not perfect, but real. Not aesthetic, but authentic. The trade-off was worthwhile. Subscribe for more content. See you in the next.